Romeo and Juliet fall in love, but the Romeo is Montague and Juliet is a Capulet. The two families have been in a long and violent feud. In deep despair, Romeo challenges the idea that one's family name could stand as an obstacle to love, and he asks the famous question, "What's in a name? That which we call a rose by any other word would smell as sweet." Romeo suggests that names should not matter. It is the things themselves that move us with their beauty. What a beautiful and powerful argument! But is this philosophical position scientifically sound? Maybe we can get some inspiration from a story a linguist discovered in Nicaragua, Central Africa. Mary No Name, like many people in Nicaragua, is deaf since birth and doesn't have any language except some primitive gestures. She could not tell people who she was and how old she was. To tell the linguist about herself, she had to take the linguist home and show the pictures of her family. To communicate with you, she has to share the exact context with you. As you can see, in the absence of words, human can only deal with those things which could be perceived and manipulated directly. But with the language, our mind can travel in space and time, so words carry great power. Is this power unique to humans? Is language an artificial construct independent of biology? Does any other species have language? Research shows that other species almost exclusively communicate their present psychological state and intentions. They are focused on the here and now. People would use language to discuss what the world was like a millennium ago, but there's no evidence that non-human species do that. Among all sentient life on Earth, the bonobo is the closest extant relative to us. They share 98.5% of genes with humans. In 1980, scientists found that a bonobo baby called Kanzi learned to recognize several words on his own in the lab. Then Dr. Sue Savage-Rumbaugh raised Kanzi like a human baby. She used a lexigram to teach him words. By 2010, Kanzi had acquired thousands of words. He even beat a 2-year-old human child in word recognition tasks. He could also understand many instructions from humans. However, until today, he still can't produce a sentence of more than 2 words, and the grammar is missing. Despite all the effort by the scientists, Kanzi failed. How about other species? Some species like dolphins, elephants, and parrots are very smart, but none of them has anything remotely similar to language. If language cannot be acquired through shared experience, is language innate? Another story would give us some insight. When Jeannie was 20 months old, her father locked her in an isolated room and tied her to a child's toilet. Her father would beat her if she made any noise. This life of utter deprivation for Jeannie lasted 12 years until a social worker in Los Angeles discovered the tragedy in 1970. Jeannie was eventually free, but she was extremely pale and skinny. She couldn't walk and couldn't speak. 15 minutes before Jeannie's father was due in court, he put a bullet to his head. The violent delights have violent ends. Then Jeannie was rehabilitated by a group of scientists. She was extremely curious, and her cognitive development was fast. She was very interested in learning the names of everything around her, and developed a huge vocabulary. However, she still couldn't acquire language. Some words like what, when, who, why were absent in her mind. She couldn't form questions or negative sentences for this reason. She was never able to correctly use grammar to put words together to make meaningful sentences. Syntax is essential for organizing information. Without it, vocabulary alone can't build complicated structures to describe the world in any meaningful sense. So maybe language is partly encoded in our genes, but nature also matters, especially in the young age. Some research shows that infants continuously collect sound statistics from their parents, even they don't understand the language at all. In this process, They gradually understand what kind of sound belongs to their native language and become more sensitive to them. When they are 8 months old, the sound distribution in their brain stabilizes and they stop learning new phonemes. For this reason, it's hard for people older than 8 months to distinguish similar sound in non-native languages, while infants younger than that can easily distinguish between phonemes in all languages. So if you want your babies to be bilingual, you'd better expose them to that language early. You may think you can use radio or TV to play the language, but it won't work. Infants need a real speaker in front of them to activate the sound collecting process. Kora is a newly discovered language in India and has around 800 speakers in the world. Females often speak the language to their babies because that's the only way to preserve it. What would happen if people don't have any language input but they are not isolated like Mary No Name and Jeannie? There were many people like Mary No Name in Nicaragua and they were isolated from society. In 1977, Nicaragua founded its first school for the deaf. For the first time, they had a community. When these deaf children got together, they tried to communicate with each other in their own ways. Then the miracle happened. They created their own language, a full-fledged sign language with complicated syntax. This moment in history may be similar to what happened 50,000 years ago, the tipping point of the human rise. This language is called Nicaragua Sign Language. It keeps evolving as more students enter the school. The first generation of students did all the signs in front of their chest. Then the next generation of students began to sign in different positions relative to their body to modulate the meaning. After that, the new generation modulates the meaning by just pointing to different locations. In linguistic terms, they created morphology. The language changed from analog format to discrete and combinatorial format, which increased the expressive power. This language is like an organism that keeps evolving. It lives in a symbiotic relationship with humans. Each serves as the environment for one another, constantly adapting to each other. This miracle indicates that language may be a universal principle in the universe. So can you talk with the aliens if you meet one? If the aliens can reach Earth, we can assume they have some civilization and technology, so probably they have some basic things like math and language. Noam Chomsky, the father of modern linguistics, believes that deep down, all languages share the same principles. There are 6,300 languages on Earth. State-of-the-art research shows that all languages are coherent. Perhaps a unified theory of language is just around the corner. Chomsky said in a talk that it's conceivable to build a bridge between the aliens' language and ours. So if aliens land in Wakanda, we fight them with a vengeance. If aliens land in Nicaragua, we can invent a new language together, then sit down and talk. Language seems so natural to us that we ignored how marvelous it is. We dissect nature along lines laid down by our languages every day. It adds another dimension to each of us, and that dimension is key to civilization. Large-scale cooperation wouldn't be possible without it, and through language, individuals can get access to the collective wisdom of the human race. Without language, the rose would smell as sweet, but our civilization wouldn't be as splendid, and our next generation would not remember the tears, the blood, the legends, and the catastrophes we've experienced. May you wield the power of language to create a better future from our shared understanding of the past.